So, It's a Wonderful Life, the Christmas classic from 1946, is not only one of my favorite Christmas movies, it's also one of my all-time favorite movies, period. And this year, 2023, we got a horror comedy slasher movie called It's a Wonderful Knife, which is an obvious play on the general premise of It's a Wonderful Life. And they should have just left the classic alone. Welcome back to The Haunted Beard, everybody. My name is Jake. Thank you for joining me. It's all horror and thriller movie content on my channel, so listen, do not click that subscribe button unless you want to be haunted by the beard. So It's a Wonderful Knife tells the story of Winnie Carruthers, who after saving her town from a psychotic killer, her life becomes less than wonderful, and she wishes she'd never been born. And Winnie's wish is granted, and she gets to see the alternate reality of what life would have looked like if she was never born. And I will just come right out and say that this was not my thing. I've said before on my channel, horror comedy is my least favorite subgenre of horror, as it's really just kind of a coin flip, and more often than not, it comes down on just didn't really work for me, and this is another one. Before I get into a handful of the reasons why I didn't particularly enjoy this, I will give the movie one shout out though, as I do think Justin Long is actually pretty good. And his character is a complete and total scumbag, and I think he plays into it quite well. And if there is any humor that I got out of this, it came from Justin Long, as there are a few moments where I did find his character amusing, and I think he just kind of hams it up intentionally, and it works pretty well. Other than that, though, I've got quite a list of issues with this thing. So yeah, here we go. So to start things off, the main issue I have with the movie is just in the writing aspect, in really the characters and how they are written. First off, the majority of the characters here are just annoying and awful. And the couple exceptions with Winnie and her friend Weirdo, I feel like they just really play into these stereotypes. And maybe it's just because I recently watched the movie Totally Killer, and I felt like the characters were kind of similar in that, but why does it feel like so many Gen Z characters and Gen Z age characters in nowadays are written like the exact same way, where their home life sucks, their parents suck, all they do is whine and complain about how terrible their lives are, and all they're interested in is going to parties and drinking and doing drugs. And to me, it's feeding into this stereotype. It's just like that's all we're kind of getting out of this. And I don't know, I don't really find any of that all that compelling. One of the things too, and I don't know if it's really even fair to compare this to the original classic, but I'm going to anyway. With the original film, you spend the first hour and 45 minutes or so with your main character, George Bailey, and all the other characters. And it's just written so well because it tells such an interesting story with great and well-developed characters, and their relationships are established, and you really feel this emotional connection to them. And then the last, 20 minutes or so of the movie is when George Bailey wishes he'd never been born. Well, here in It's a Wonderful Knife, first of all, the movie's only like 85 minutes long, and she already wishes she'd never been born within like the first 20 to 25 minutes of the movie. And so you don't really get all this sort of build-up. You don't get all this time to develop the characters, to feel invested in her and her life and her story and everything that's going on. And so the whole section of the film where she wishes she'd never been born and then is able to see the reality of that, it just doesn't really have the impact that I think it should have. Another thing that I just found annoying, and this is probably a nitpicky issue, was the character of Weirdo. She's the one who gets bullied, but she keeps showing up to these parties. And it's like, if nobody likes her, why is she getting invited to the parties? And if she knows that nobody likes her and she's just going to get bullied, why does she continue to go to the parties? That didn't really make any sense to me. Other things that just kind of annoyed me about this is, of course, they have to make a very direct and clear reference to It's a Wonderful Life, where one of the characters says to Winnie, I think it was Weirdo, she says, "You're George Bailey. Can I be your Clarence?" And again, it reminds me of that movie Totally Killer, where they literally used the plot of Back to the Future to explain the movie. And to me, it's just this like eye roll moment where it's just such blatantly obvious. Like, is that really supposed to be funny? It's like, yeah, we get it. The movie's called It's a Wonderful Knife. Nobody's missing the connection here. And then we get to a point in the movie where Joel Mchale, who's the dad to Winnie's character, they're sitting down having a conversation, and he literally says this line. I'm going to read it to you. This is what he says. "Do you know, it's really something. One person's life can change everything just by being gone." And to me, this is the point where I just came to the conclusion that the writer here thinks his audience is a bunch of idiots. I mean, talk about spoon feeding. It's the most blatantly obvious message to the film. It's like, listen, we've been watching It's a Wonderful Life for like 80 years. We understand, like, that's one of the messages of the movie. We get it. Why do you need to tell us that so straightforward and just spoon feed the audience like we don't understand or get that? It was just one of those moments where I kind of shook my head and was like, really? Like, that actually had to be said by a character in case we somehow missed that as the audience? It's insulting. Some of the issues I have get into some spoiler territory, so I won't really get into specifics. There's a scene later on where they kind of knock out the killer and he's at the bottom of the stairs unconscious and they have to like climb over him. I thought that was handled really, really poorly. And then once you get the actual reveal of the killer and sort of the explanation behind why they're the killer and why they're doing what they're doing, I thought was just pretty awful. And then the whole climactic sequence, again, was pretty awful and just not very effective. So, yeah, anyway, look, this was just not for me. This was another swing and a miss. And, you know, I was even debating whether or not I would review this because I don't like getting in front of the camera and just trashing on movies. I'd rather say positive things. It's just much more fun to talk about. But this is one that was on my anticipated list for the year, and I was looking forward to it. But yeah, it just didn't really come together for me. So anyways, those are my thoughts. Hit me up down below like always. Would love to hear your thoughts, especially if you liked it. I'm always interested in hearing people's different opinions. That's what makes movies so great, is that, you know, there's not one right answer. Everybody sees something different and has a different opinion about it, and that's what makes it fun. So anyways, like I said, that's all I got. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time on The Haunted Beard.